We are live.
It's been so long.
It's been so long. Do you remember
I
the
think
last
like
one?
was it pre-cohort 1? I feel like it was.
I feel like it was.
Yeah,
And
because then we took a
we did cohort
break.
1 and then we just dropped off.
Yeah. It took everything out of us to get that up and running.
We're like, see you guys in 6 months.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, which sounds like us.
Yeah, it
I
has
think
to
at
be.
the same time, I can appreciate that we're like, okay, when we have it, we give it our all, and then when we don't, it's like, ciao, we'll see you when we see you. But it's been nice to hear feedback and messages about people who have said that they miss us on here. So
Yeah, we've both bumped into a few people who've been like, we missed your lives, missed your contemplating out loud. And also we're in the midst of doing the promotion for the new cohort of the seed, the second cohort of the seed, which we'll be talking about. So we're much more active on our socials than we have been in a while. So it was the right time to come back and to do what we love to do, which is sit and just shoot the shit with each other.
consciousness.
Yeah. I saw one of our mutual friends last week and she said, "How are things going?" I said, "It's a very contemplative time for Danny and I." And she was like, "When are you two not contemplating?"
I think you need to forever be contemplating, and if you're going to do this work, and
Yes.
actually do it with heart and soul and meaning.
Do you want to start by defining this work?
Yeah.
Or do you think it'd be helpful to do like a very quick agenda rundown of what we're going to be talking about? No?
It's not a meeting. It's not a
No, but what
workshop.
about for the viewer?
Sure. Okay. Go
Okay,
for
dear
it.
viewer. So this live is entitled The Seed Cohort 2 and Designing Experiences of Belonging. So we do want to give you a run through of the seed, which will be happening in the next half hour. It's not going to be a full run through, an overview of what our intention was with this program and an invitation to join us. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about our process to experience design and program design and how that process seeps into our own personal lives and how it's essentially a lifestyle that we're attempting to turn into a business style. And yeah, back to you, Danny. So what is this work? Capital T, capital W.
I'm trying to define it as something else than EDI work, than ideas work, than systems change work. It's like that's the kind of obvious corporate lingo. I think when I refer to it or when you refer to it, and to be honest, when people who participate in the seed walk out of it, it's like it's a commitment to creating and embodying practices, spaces that are rooted in belonging, that promote justice, that promote liberation, that promote joy in the midst of probably one of the hardest times that we are facing collectively,
Mm-hmm.
when it can be so easy to tap out and disconnect and disassociate and become apathetic. I think for me, this work is intentionally choosing to stay plugged in, obviously with breaks as we need, but recommitting every day to showing up and fight the good fight.
Reorienting towards the area where we have impact, I think, as well, which is very important. Continuously orienting towards the place where you can engage with an open heart. Yeah, so I had to introduce myself to someone over the last couple of days, and someone else said, "Erin, please introduce yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do? And the first thing to know, who are you? What do you do? How are you? Like, hate these questions. Don't
Yes.
take me down this path. Um, and you and I, with regards to this work, capital T, capital W, but also this
W.
W. But also with regards to the work of New Room, like the answer, like, what do you do question, I'm just like, I've really been trying to simplify it down because I don't want to get caught in lingo. I don't want people to um, like immediately box it in. And so I've been saying, I'm trying to say something closer to what you just said, which was designing experiences and spaces where people can deeply connect with themselves and each other so that they can meaningfully build relationships. And then it's like a little bit more of an open conversation with people about, well, what does that mean? And what does that look like? And the exciting thing about what we do is that it can go in a lot of different directions because, when you're talking about creating experiences and spaces rooted in belonging, it does look so different depending on who's in front of us and what their needs are and where they're at in life and where they're at on their own journey of learning and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think all this to say, person who's following along, um, the seed is our online program, which we say is our program that teaches how to build cultures and practices of rooting to belonging. And even that came out jumbled. Essentially, it's a program to learn how to create environments of belonging rather than just learn how to create the principles or learn about the principles of EDI. As we were designing this program 2 years ago, you can't talk about the concepts of equity, diversity, and inclusion if you talk about the concepts without bringing them to a place of real human relationships and dynamics and exchange and like power dynamics and um, care and emotion and all this stuff. If you don't bring it to that place, then it feels like an incomplete learning experience for us. So we really wanted to bring it all the way to relationships and belonging and all this deep stuff. And so what that's resulted in is a learning program, a 5-week learning program that does what, Danny? What do you think the seed does?
I think in 5 weeks, the hope is that we guide participants through a learning journey that has them explore first and foremost their own identity within the systems that we are living in and under, and then bridge them outwards or expand them outwards. So, you know, intrapersonal, a deep look at who we are as individuals, our ideologies that shape us, the identities that shape us, then who we are in regards to our interpersonal relationships, then who we are in regards to the systems that we are governing under, and then a look at the systems and a really kind of global understanding of what do we mean when we say systems? What does that even mean? Because I think a lot of these terms are thrown out there and we hear them, kind of on the daily right now when we talk about systemic change, systemic racism, systemic this. So, a look at systems, and then we are hoping to close the journey off with understanding how to reimagine systems. So, how do we actually design new systems? What possibilities are out there? What examples are out there from natural systems that we can gain inspiration from and apply to our own lives and work? And how do we move forward with all of this information with attention? A lot of people know a lot of things. A lot of people are in these roles, but don't necessarily know how to concretely implement them. And
Mhm.
so the hope really is through this program that, you come in as you are, do a little bit of self-exploration, and leave with a more thorough understanding of your role within the system and your capacity to drive change within the microsystems that you are a part of.
I love that so much. And I think what's surprising for a lot of people when we do get to the point of the conversation and all of that, where we're talking about how we can actually start to drive change, how we can start to influence and impact the shifts that we want to see on a systemic level, but first around us immediately. What's surprising is that you realize that a lot of the practices that need to be put in place are often so much more simple and so much more human and so focused on the interpersonal. So focused on the interpersonal, not about heavy process or heavy strategic planning, and all about committing to and creating space for meaningfully building relationships with the people around you.
I think
And
that's the first step for sure. I do
yeah,
think that the heavy strategic planning needs to come after that and cannot precede that. Because if you start with the heavy strategic planning without having done the small interpersonal, then um, you miss the fundamentals of this work. But I do genuinely believe that interpersonal relationships and individual change go hand in hand with the systemic change, which is a whole other program. It's a whole other field. And I think what the seed is hoping to do is like get people to a level where they feel comfortable then driving the systemic change a little bit more confidently.
right. A pause or a pin in this right now because I'm with you. But are
Yeah,
you wearing a bracelet or what is happening
I'm not. Do you hear something?
when you're like driving change?
Oh, my nails. My nails are so long. I'm so sorry. Okay, okay, okay. I will. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, I won't do it. I won't do it anymore.
For those of you watching, this is like when Danny and I have to record videos. Yesterday we recorded stuff. We literally had like 15 bloopers on one video. 15 startovers. It was just like there was constantly there was
Like, that would be a
constantly.
good gift for anybody who knows us, like, just, like, compiling all of our
Oh
videos.
my God. And then at the very end, we're like, should we run through that one more time? Yes, let's do it. We're in the middle of filming this video. It's like maybe a 10-minute video in total. And we just started this like meditation moment and I'm guiding the meditation moment. Danny's eyes are closed. We're in deep, we're in just like, full presence. And then I can hear,
My mom is, like, shuffling in her bag and putting her shoes on and closing doors. Oh gosh.
and then I open my eyes, I look at Danny, I'm like, I'm gonna pause this right now.
We're gonna stop right
Yeah, we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop. Mama, we need complete silence.
now.
Oh my God. Um, yes. Okay. So back to this notion of integrating belonging first in the interpersonal and then also in the strategic. Um, there's a quote in the seed that I always connect to Dr. John Powell, who is a very
Put that
important
into my
figure.
own.
Yes, and actually I say it's Dr. John Powell, but actually it's Danny Joe. Do you remember the quote?
Yeah. Um, like institutionalized belonging.
Yeah.
What's the full quote?
This is what I was hoping you'd have on
I think
hand.
it's like transformation or something is institutionalized belonging.
Yeah. Essentially, the point being that practices of belonging, although they start in the very interpersonal, they can become strategic. They can become intentionally planned for. They can become ingrained in the way we build community, build teams, build companies. They can become institutionalized. And when they do, you're taking a very meaningful, very intentional step towards social transformation by making your values, integrating your values into your policy and your practices and the ways in which you support your team in working together. And yeah, so backing it up a bit to this idea of like belonging at an interpersonal level, I was thinking about the second part of this conversation, which is designing experiences of belonging, and how you and I think about designing experiences. What comes to mind to you as our approach?
Mm. A few things are coming to mind for me. First and foremost, I think we ask ourselves, like, how do we want participants to feel? Like, I feel like the feeling element is a big one. I also find myself sometimes when we're designing, like the other day, I don't know if you do that also, but like I project myself into the feet of the participant and I think about, okay, how does this feel if we flow from this to this, if I'm in that room, what am I
I know when you're in
am
that headspace because you literally are like this.
exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah. My hypnotherapist told me that when I close my eyes, which is like the majority of the session, she tells me that I self-hypnotize really well because I'm
Oh,
capable of like dropping in very quickly.
oh my God.
That's a side note. But there's a big emphasis on how we want the experience to feel. I think we are both very committed to um, the experiential, kind of embodied experience of the journey that we are designing. I think we are committed to centering the needs of the most equity deserving first and really adapting this sidewalk curb approach. Side note for folks who are like, what's a sidewalk curb approach? It's an approach that centers the needs of the most marginalized, the most equity deserving at the heart of design, and is the result of disability advocacy, is the culprit of universal design that we see everywhere now.
The culprit.
Culprit is maybe not the right. I feel like is that like pejorative?
Uh,
Catalyst?
yeah, catalyst. I like catalyst.
Catalyst would be better. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're very focused on, okay, well, if intersectional identities are partaking in this experience, how is that feeling for them? Because they are the ones that probably have um, more visibility on the things that we can't see or can't perceive in our own biases. And so we try as much as we can to project ourselves there.
Mm.
What else comes to mind in terms of our experience? I think a lot about um, welcoming people in the space. How we start off is important, how we close is important, our check-ins, our checkouts, are people introducing themselves? Yeah. What about you?
There's so many things, and I was trying to fiddle and find a pen
Yeah.
while we were talking, and I couldn't find the pen. Um, but you mentioned how do we want it to feel? Designing for the folks who have been historically marginalized first, and centering their experience as much as we can. You mentioned opening and closing, which I think is so important. Is
Yeah.
if you're designing an experience or a space, for whatever, a space has walls, a space has a container, a space has like a door in and a door out. It has to. Otherwise, it's
Boundless.
unbound. It's like, and I mean, I've been a part of so many different experiences, and I know you have as well, because we talk about this all the time, where the space isn't opened and closed. And then what happens? You're left kind of like feeling a little bit of vulnerability or a little bit of insecurity, or like, what's the follow-up, or where does this
Yeah.
conversation go, or
Yeah.
even in like more kind of official planning sort of situations, like,
Mhm.
where does this end? What will I hear next? How is my voice being used here? um,
And I think what I've come to, one, understand through Priya Parker's work on the art of gathering, but two, become like shameless about, is people actually want to be told what to do in a space where they don't know everybody or anybody at all. It's helpful for people to be told, like, okay, first we do this, then we do this, then we're going to invite you to do this, and for it to be as structured as possible, because it helps people kind of land in the space and ground in the space, and find their footing. And then you can kind of, open it up a little bit.
mhm, mhm,
But yeah, opening and closing.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that about what people wanting to be told what to do. And I think it's nice to be guided. Like, I know when we're facilitating, I really don't mind playing the role of like, I know I get like some sort of military nickname around this time, but
Sergeant.
but, um, I really don't mind playing the role of like the timekeeper when people are in exercises, because I think it's, if you're trying to keep a mental clock going for yourself of like, okay, I have 20 minutes to reflect right now, or to journal, or
Mhm.
this exercise, like, if you don't feel like someone's going to be like, okay, we're halfway, this is the halfway point, you have 5 minutes left, finish up your thoughts, whatever, you can't fully dip in. So playing the role for you and I of like people who see the bigger picture of the journey that we're taking them on, really like the guides who understand how long things are going to take and stuff like that. I think that's yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
The other thing that comes to mind, so we mentioned, first and foremost, how do we want it to feel? Using the sidewalk curb uh, method
Approach.
approach, which is designing for the most marginalized first, creating a container, um, not being shy to have structure. So people want to be told what to do, keeping time, super important. Um, in that container, also, I'm backtracking a bit, but warm welcome, warm close. I think you and I really lead with a lot of individuality first, to set the tone for however much individuality people feel comfortable bringing into the conversation.
Mhm.
And I know that makes a difference, because people mention it a lot. If we're showing up as we are, um, it creates space for others.
Yeah.
The other thing that comes to mind for me is like, um, maybe even like, so if we're given the task of designing on behalf of a team, then we move through a lot of the things that we've already talked about. If you and I are thinking about what do we want to design from New Room's perspective for the community, I think the place that we've been starting from the very beginning of the business is, what do you and I want? Like, or more than what do we want, what do we need? And those are
Yeah.
the, yeah, the things that we design from that place of like, I really feel that this is needed, people really resonate, and they don't need to be complicated things that we put together. You know, you have a lot of pings around like, I really feel there needs to be space for a conversation around XYZ. We should be holding this space. Or like during the summer, Danny was telling me that one of her pings was that she's like, I need to regulate my nervous system. All I want to do is just like sit in a park and read beside a bunch of other people who are reading and like co-regulate. And so we are like, okay, let's do it. Bring your own book. And now our fourth iteration of that BYOB is happening on Sunday, and people are loving it, and it's nothing complicated. It's just something that you felt you needed.
Yeah. 100%. And I think tying that back to tying all of this in terms of like how we design for the seed, I think folks who are leading this work right now, this work, capital T, capital W,
W.
W, buggle you. Also are in deep need of community, of guidance, of some form of structure and journey that will allow them to, if they're not new to this work, remind them why they started. If they are new to this work, provide them with a similar structure that they can then go out and copy, and or some form of template that they can run with and lead with and start with. And I think that the intention of this program very much was to design what we hoped was around when we were getting started. I know for me, I kind of tumbled into this world because I worked in the community space, and a lot of people knew a lot of things that I didn't know. A lot of people were using language that I didn't know, had frameworks that I wasn't aware about. And so I kind of had to find my own footing. And I wish that there was a space that allowed me to explore with curiosity, but also um, without judgment, that allowed me to ask questions, that allowed me to journey with other folks from the same and different walks of life as me. And then that allowed me to take away a concrete, like, okay, how do I move forward and implement this into my life and work?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think the seed is another example of, we designed something that we both wish we had and needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, you said a few things that sparked some ideas for me around thinking about more broadly experiences of belonging. Um, I think experiences and spaces that center belonging. Um, no, I don't want to make a generalization, but they create space for the wisdom of the people in the room rather than establishing authorities.
And expertise.
Yeah, there are people with tools, and there are people with knowledge, and there are people with lived experience, and all of these pieces need room and space to be learned from and to be heard. So I think
Yeah.
designing for belonging, designing for belonging requires a lot of room for other people to speak than just the designer or just the designers. A
Yeah.
lot of room for questions and a lot of space for integration of what you're learning, what you're feeling, um, or maybe integration of new relationships that are being formed in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
room for exchange. Um, And the other thing that came to mind as you were talking was, broadly, I think experiences of sense of belonging transparently share information.
Hmm.
Um,
As in, like, democratize? What do you mean by transparently share information? I know what you
well,
mean, but
yeah, it's because I'm thinking, like, first of all, make information accessible, because
yeah.
people want clarity and they want contextualizing information. You know,
Mhm.
um, even if someone isn't a decision maker in a room, they want to know why things are happening and what is happening and how that might impact maybe their day to day or their work, but also like just the next couple of hours.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think like I don't think that information is seen as something that should be kind of like kept behind a closed door in an environment where we want people to feel that they belong.
I hear that.
And and that's a big motivation for us since the very beginning of our organization, is just making information accessible to people. Like, thinking about you wanting to design this program, you even had access to several different programs, or several different like classes and courses at a university level that gave you access to this information, and still you wanted that deeper sort of engagement.
Hmm.
um yeah, and also, sorry, I'm kind of rambling now on the access to information piece, but I think if you're trying in an organization to create an environment where people feel that they belong, access to information feels extremely important to me. Maybe because we're talking about it right now, but I
I
think
think
yeah, go for it, go for it. Cut
I
me
was gonna say, um, I think transparency is the word. I think access to information. I don't need to know everything. I need to know why decisions are being made that impact me and my role.
hmm
I need to know, why we can or cannot do certain things that will impact my agency, which brings us to the pillars of belonging around transparency, around agency, around a shared sense of responsibility and care, which we unpack in module 1.
hmm So, recapping what we've said so far as designing experiences of belonging. First of all, how do we want people to feel? We start with how do we want them to feel rather than what do we want them to think. We think about the sidewalk curb, and we design for the people who have not been centered in conversations. We create a container that has a warm opening and a warm closing and a clear boundary for the experience of start and finish. We don't shy away from structure. People want to be told what to do, and it's our role to guide them. We think about, from our perspective, Danny and I, what do we actually need? What are we looking for? Are we looking for connection to community? Are we looking for moments of rest? Are we looking for deep conversation? Are we looking for co-creation? And we go from there. We create space. We hold space for integration and for moments where people can remember or feel into what they've taken away. We create space for the wisdom in the room. We focus on transparency, sharing context, contextualizing information, and making sure that people have access to what they need to know in order to feel that sense of agency. We leave room for questions.
This is a lot. Wow. I thought we had like 5 things. I didn't know we had all this.
Yeah, and I think there are more, honestly.
There are more. There are more. I think we said the key ones for sure though. And
Space to dream together.
sorry, I got a message. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think ultimately, like, a space that centers belonging is a space that centers human emotions, needs, relations first, and then the rest of the content second.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start wrapping this up. We're at 35 minutes. The
Mm-hmm.
seed cohort 2 launches Monday, September 23rd.
Yep.
We have, I think we can take like another 5-10 people that we would love to close with. So if you are interested, if you have a professional development budget, if you're a part of a community organization, if you're a part of a team, please reach out. Please have a look. Do you want to give the 5-module rundown quickly without just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Okay. Yes, drill sergeant.
We said 30 minutes. So I'm like, what's...
So the seed is a 5-week, 5-module program. Each week we move through one module. The first module, which is our foundational one, is called Cultures of Belonging. We learn about the pillars of belonging. Our second module is called Privilege, Power, and Trust. This is where we dive into our own identity, our intersecting identities, and how identities connect with privilege, power, how we redistribute power, and grow trusting relationships. We then move from that lens of self into module 3, which is called Understanding Systems. We look at the current dominant systems in society. We reimagine systems of the future because those systems were at one point imagined. So we do have the ability to imagine new. We then move into module 4, which is called Building Communities of Care, where we actually think about how we can start enacting practices that center care, that center belonging, that center the relationships that we're trying to build. And then finally, we end on module 5, which is moving forward with intention. And this is where we think about using a designer lens and designer mindset to test and to iterate as we go and to co-create as we establish our plan for remaining committed and accountable.
I love when you walk through that. It's you have a way of like drawing the thread so seamlessly.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
We did a good job designing this.
We did. It's a wonderful program.
Yeah.
How do we check out?
Join us. Yeah. Okay. Love you, Danny Joe. I'll see you.
Oh, we weren't checking out?
Oh, what do you want to do to check out? Yesterday, I asked if you were a fall beverage or what's your fall go-to beverage?
Oh, that's interesting.
Is it? Everyone's like,
I mean, like, I've never been asked that. I love a good new question. I think my go-to beverage right now is a London Fog.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, I don't know how I got into it. I don't know why. Also, my Black friends were like, "What's a London Fog?" And I was like, like tea with milk. And they're like, "What did she say?" Marina said, like, "Oh, thé au lait." Like the Haitians have like a specific name for it. They're like, "What's a London Fog?" So there are the words for it. It's just black tea with milk and a little bit of like sweetener.
Yeah. I'm definitely a milky tea person.
I was never a milky tea person because I was never a milky person. But now that there's almond milk and alternative milks, I'm like, right, I get it now.
Mm-hmm. Is that enough of a checkout?
Yeah. What's yours?
Checkout? No, I mean that milky tea. Oh. Fall beverage?
Yeah.
Hot coffee, milky tea. Yeah.
You're not like a pumpkin spice latte, are you? No. No.
In the meeting yesterday when I was doing this question, we ran through 5 people who were all like, yeah, tea. And then the last person I was like, are you our pumpkin spice person?
And they're like, yes.
I hate to say this, but I think I am. But I'm a pumpkin spice person. And she's like, Silk has a pumpkin spice creamer. And she's like, I can do it like so fast.
That's hilarious. There's always one.
It was very
Thank you for
cute.
saying that.
Okay, cool.
Love you a
So,
lot.
bye everybody. Thank you for joining us. We love you. Join the
You
seed
too.
online. Danielle, see you soon.
Yeah.
Ending stream.